My name is Dr. Richard Caldwell. For 26 years, I served as chief psychiatrist at Ashcroft State Psychiatric Hospital. I spent most of that career separating patterns created by damaged minds from patterns created by reality. Reality is stubborn. Delusion is inventive. By the end of my first decade at Ashcroft, I believed I could tell the difference within minutes of an interview. That confidence lasted until patient 2147. His name was Daniel Harper, 38 years old, married, one daughter. No criminal history, no psychiatric history, no drug use. He worked as a regional sales representative, driving thousands of miles every month without incident. According to his wife, he left Columbus on a Tuesday morning for a routine business trip. He never arrived. State police found him 4 days later, wandering along Interstate 68 in western Maryland. His suit jacket was missing. His shoes had no laces. His wallet remained untouched. He was severely dehydrated. When officers approached, he simply asked them one question. Did they follow you? After medical stabilization, he was transferred to Ashcroft for psychiatric evaluation. I met him the following morning. He looked exhausted more than frightened. His eyes were bloodshot. His hands never stopped rubbing together, as though he were trying to remove something no one else could see. I introduced myself. He nodded politely. Do you know where you are? A hospital. Do you know why you're here? They think I'm crazy. Are you? No, he answered without hesitation. I understand why they think that. That answer interested me. Patients suffering active delusions rarely question the credibility of their own experiences. Daniel expected disbelief. I opened his file. Would you tell me what happened? He stared at the floor for nearly 30 seconds. I can tell you, he said, but you won't hear the important part. And what's that? They asked. I waited. They always ask. I assumed he meant the police. The officers? His head lifted. No. The children. What children? The ones with the black eyes. He watched my expression carefully. I know how that sounds, he said. I've been saying that sentence in my head for 4 days, trying to make it sound less insane. It never does. I asked him to start at the beginning. He leaned back. It started at a gas station. Daniel had been driving east after finishing a client meeting. It was nearly midnight when he pulled into a small independent station just off the interstate. Only one pump remained operational. The cashier was inside reading a newspaper. No other vehicles, no music, no insects buzzing beneath the fluorescent lights. Daniel finished pumping gas. As he reached for the nozzle, someone spoke behind him. Mister? He turned, expecting an adult. Instead, 2 children stood less than 10 feet away, a boy and a girl, perhaps 12 and 10 years old. Neither looked frightened, neither looked lost. Daniel smiled politely. You kids all right? The boy nodded. We need a ride. Where are your parents? They're waiting. Where? At home. Daniel offered to call the police. The boy shook his head. No, we only need permission. Daniel frowned. Permission? To ride with you. Then, for the first time, the children looked directly into the overhead lights. That was when Daniel saw their eyes. No brown, no blue, no green, no whites, only black, completely black. He stopped speaking. The interview room fell silent. I looked down to make another note. When I looked back up, Daniel was staring at the office door behind my chair. I turned instinctively. The hallway outside my office was empty. When I faced him again, his expression had drained of color. They found me, he whispered. Then, almost apologetically, They don't like being talked about. Daniel said he got into his truck without replacing the fuel cap. The children did not follow him. That detail mattered to him. They did not chase him. They did not shout. They simply watched. Daniel locked the doors and pulled away from the pump. 5 miles later, he heard tapping from the back seat. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again. Then the girl spoke from directly behind him. "You forgot to answer." Daniel swerved into the opposite lane. The back seat was empty. A mile later, the boy's voice came from the passenger seat. "May we come with you?" No one was there. For the next 2 hours, the voices moved through the truck, sometimes from the back seat, sometimes from the trunk, once from beneath the dashboard, always calm, always polite. They never threatened him. They only asked. At approximately 2 in the morning, Daniel pulled into a brightly lit rest area crowded with trucks. He ran inside and locked himself in a bathroom stall until sunrise. When he returned to the parking lot, his truck was gone. Security footage showed Daniel arriving at 2:07 in the morning and running into the building alone. It did not show his truck leaving. At 3:14 in the morning, the vehicle was simply absent from the next frame. The camera had not malfunctioned. No footage was missing. Daniel borrowed a phone and called his wife. He told her he was alive, but refused to say where he was. By the time police arrived, Daniel had disappeared into the trees behind the rest area. For 4 days, he moved through the forest, avoiding roads and sleeping beneath fallen branches. He believed the children were searching for him, not because he had refused them, because he had not answered correctly. "What would the correct answer have been?" I asked. Daniel rubbed his palms together. "I don't know." "Did you see them again?" He nodded. "Every night." He described 2 silhouettes standing between the trees, never closer than 20 yards, never farther than 30, always waiting. On the final night they spoke. "What did they say?" I asked. Daniel hesitated. "They said they would ask someone else." I wrote the sentence in his chart. At the time, it seemed like nothing more than the closing line of a well-constructed delusion. Daniel was admitted for observation. His lab results were normal apart from dehydration and mild electrolyte imbalance. Toxicology was negative. Neurological imaging showed no lesions, tumors, or evidence of seizure activity. Over the next week, he remained oriented, cooperative, and rational about everything except the children. He did not claim they were demons. He did not insist the hospital was part of a conspiracy. He simply maintained that 2 children with entirely black eyes had asked to enter his truck. I diagnosed him provisionally with brief psychotic disorder precipitated by exhaustion and stress. I might have discharged him within another week. Then one of our senior nurses, Margaret Lane, approached me after rounds. She placed a cassette tape on my desk. Case 701, E. Morales, 1987. Margaret said she remembered a phrase from Daniel's interview. "They always ask." The tape belonged to Elena Morales, admitted nearly 9 years before Daniel was born. I listened alone that evening. The recording was poor. Air hissed behind every word. Elena described 2 children appearing at her home during a storm in 1987, a boy and a girl. They knocked shortly after midnight and asked to use her telephone because their mother had been injured. Elena nearly opened the door. Then the boy raised his face. His eyes were black. She refused them. The children remained on her porch until morning. For the next 6 nights they returned. On the 7th, the knocking came from inside the house. Elena crawled beneath the floorboards and stayed there until neighbors heard her screaming. The psychiatrist asked whether the children had threatened her. "No," Elena said. "What did they say?" "They said they would ask someone else." I stopped the tape. Then I rewound it. The words were identical to Daniel's. Not similar, identical. Elena's summary mentioned no black-eyed children. Her diagnosis had been late-onset paranoid schizophrenia. The final page contained a handwritten note. Patient continues to request confirmation that no children have been admitted to the facility. Believes their arrival will indicate someone answered. I returned to Daniel's ward. Before I could speak, he asked whether we had a pediatric unit. Ashcroft did not. I told him so. He looked relieved. Then he glanced toward the narrow window in his door. "They'll look younger when they come here," he said. I began reviewing historical files, not because I believed Daniel, because I wanted to understand how he could have reproduced details from a case that had never been publicized. Hospitals leak stories, staff gossip, patients repeat rumors. A single phrase can survive for decades in an institution, stripped of its origin. That was the explanation I preferred. Over 3 weeks, I searched records dating back to Ashcroft's opening. I found 6 cases involving children with abnormal eyes, children requesting entry, or patients refusing to open doors. Most were easily dismissed. Then I found patient 903. Her name was Laura Ames, admitted in 1994. 29 years old, emergency room nurse, no psychiatric history. Laura had been working overnight at a small hospital in northern Pennsylvania when 2 children appeared in the waiting room shortly after 3 in the morning. No one saw them enter. The front doors were locked. A boy and a girl stood near the reception desk in clean, outdated clothes. The boy asked to see their father. Laura checked the admission list. No patient had arrived with children that evening. She asked for the father's name. The boy replied, "He hasn't chosen it yet." Laura pressed the panic button beneath the desk. The lights went out. When emergency power activated, the waiting room was empty. Security footage showed Laura speaking to an empty room. After that night, Laura began seeing the children outside her apartment, first across the street, then at the bus stop, then inside the lobby of her building. Each time, they asked to be let through the next locked door. On the 5th night, someone knocked from inside her bedroom closet. Police found no intruder. They did find small, muddy footprints beginning inside the closet and ending at the foot of Laura's bed. The final transcript contained one passage I could not explain away. The psychiatrist asked, "Why do you believe these children want access to you?" Laura answered, "They don't." "Then what do they want?" "They want access through me." "To where?" Laura said. "Anywhere someone has been told not to let them in." I began speaking to Daniel more frequently, not as his physician, as an investigator. That distinction embarrasses me now. I told myself I was searching for the source of his delusion. In truth, I had become preoccupied with proving the cases were connected by something mundane. I asked Daniel whether he had ever worked in healthcare. No. Visited Ashcroft before his admission? No. Known anyone hospitalized there? No. Read about black-eyed children online. He said he had heard the phrase once, years earlier, but remembered nothing about it. That answer should have resolved the matter. The legend existed publicly by then. Daniel could have absorbed the story and forgotten the source. But the archival cases predated the term's popularity, and none of them used it. They called them the dark-eyed children, the night children. the children in the rain. The phrase changed. The behavior did not. I asked Daniel what he meant when he said they would look younger at Ashcroft. He refused to answer until I promised not to place him in a room with another patient. I gave him a private room. The following day, he told me, "They don't look the same to everyone." "How do they look to you?" "Like kids." "You said they would look younger here." "Because there are more doors." Daniel said the children had looked approximately 12 and 10 years old at the gas station. When he heard them inside the truck, their voices sounded younger. When he saw them in the forest, the silhouettes appeared no taller than toddlers. "Why would they become younger?" I asked. Daniel stared at the observation window. "Maybe that's what they really are." 2 days later, another patient reported seeing children in the west stairwell. His name was Samuel Pike. He had been admitted for severe depression following the death of his wife. He had no psychotic symptoms. Samuel said there were 2 children behind the locked fire door, a boy and a girl, both about 5 years old. The boy asked Samuel to hold the door open. Samuel refused because patients were prohibited from accessing the stairs. Security searched the building. No children were found. I interviewed Samuel that afternoon. He did not mention black eyes until I asked whether anything about them seemed unusual. He became quiet. "I thought it was the lighting." "What did you see?" Their eyes looked wrong. "How?" "Like somebody had cut holes where their faces should be." I asked exactly what the boy had said. Samuel swallowed. He said they were looking for the man who said no at the gas station. I ended the interview. Daniel was transferred that evening to a secure room in the East Wing. I did not tell Samuel where Daniel had encountered the children. No one on staff had access to Daniel's detailed account except Margaret and me. Daniel began writing rules. At first they were obvious. Do not allow unfamiliar children into your car. Do not open a door after midnight. Do not answer a child who already knows your name. Then the rules became stranger. Do not explain why you are refusing. Do not offer another way to help. Do not ask where their parents are more than once. Do not say the word inside. Do not close a door while they are touching the frame. Do not look at their reflection. Do not let them ask 3 times. I asked where he had learned these rules. From getting things wrong. He said every attempt to help had made the children more persistent. Offering to call police counted as negotiation. Asking about their parents invited them to create a story. Telling them he could not let them inside acknowledged that there was an inside to enter. "They don't need you to say yes," Daniel explained. "They need you to accept the question." I told him that made no logical sense. They aren't logical. "Then why rules?" Daniel looked at me with surprising patience. "Because rules aren't for them." He tapped the notebook. "They're for us." That night, a nurse found a new line written beneath Daniel's rules. "Do not let them ask 3 times." Daniel denied writing it. Handwriting analysis was inconclusive. The letters were block capitals, unlike the rest of his notes. I placed the notebook in my office. The next morning, the same sentence was written on the inside of Daniel's locked room door. Black marker. No marker was found in the room. Security footage showed no one entering overnight. Facilities removed the door and replaced it. By then, rumors had spread among the staff. Some believed Daniel was manipulating the hospital. Others blamed Samuel. Margaret said very little. One evening I asked whether she believed the patients. She considered the question. "I believe institutions remember things," she said. She told me that when she was a young nurse, an older orderly had warned her never to open Ashcroft's west entrance for children after dark. I asked why. He said there used to be an orphanage on this property. There had not. Ashcroft was built on farmland in 1912. Before that, county records showed only a barn, a residence, and several acres of apple trees. Margaret nodded when I told her. I checked too. The orderly had died years before Daniel's admission, but whenever the hospital lost power, Margaret said, he checked every exterior door personally, not to make sure they were locked, to make sure no one had opened them. 4 weeks after Daniel's admission, Ashcroft experienced a severe thunderstorm. Rain struck the windows hard enough to drown out conversation. At 11:46 p.m., the West Wing lost power. The emergency generator engaged within 12 seconds. During that interval, 3 magnetic security doors released: the west stairwell, the records corridor, and the exterior entrance beside the old hydrotherapy rooms. All 3 doors should have remained secured during an outage. The system logs recorded them opening, no badge use, no manual override, just open. Security officers checked the entrance. The exterior door stood ajar. Rainwater had blown across the tile. 2 sets of wet footprints led inside. One belonged to a small child. The other was smaller. The prints continued through the hydrotherapy corridor and stopped at a locked interior door. On the opposite side was the ward housing Daniel Harper. The officers called me at home. By the time I arrived, Daniel was in restraints. He had attacked no one. He had been restrained because he would not stop striking his head against the wall. Between blows, he shouted the same phrase, "Don't let them ask again." I ordered the restraints removed. Daniel collapsed onto the floor. He asked how many times they had knocked. No one had reported knocking. Then a nurse named Patrice Coleman raised her hand. She had heard something while checking medication carts. 3 knocks from the sealed hydrotherapy corridor. She assumed it was security. She opened the interior observation hatch. A child stood on the other side, a little boy, no older than 6. He asked whether Dr. Caldwell was working. Patrice said yes. The boy asked whether he could come through. Patrice closed the hatch. A few seconds later, the girl knocked. Patrice opened it again. The girl asked the same question. Patrice said she needed to find an adult. She closed the hatch. Then the boy knocked a 3rd time. Patrice did not open it. I asked why she had not reported this immediately. She began to cry. Because I thought they were patients. Children. They looked like patients. Ashcroft did not treat children. Patrice knew that. Yet in the moment, she had accepted their presence without question. She described their clothing as pale hospital gowns. Their wrists bore identification bands. What names were on the bands? I asked. Patrice shook her head. I didn't read the girls. And the boys? She looked at me. Richard Caldwell. No one spoke. Daniel began laughing, not because anything was funny, because terror had broken through whatever remained of his composure. They asked 3 times, he said. No, I replied. They asked Patrice. Daniel shook his head. They used her mouth. I did not understand. He looked toward the sealed corridor. They were asking you. The next morning, I found an envelope beneath my office door. Inside was a photocopy of an admission photograph. The patient was an elderly woman named Miriam Bell. She had lived at Ashcroft for 41 years. Her file described chronic catatonia interrupted by rare periods of coherent speech. On the back of the photograph, someone had written, "She has been waiting for you to ask." I visited Miriam's ward. She sat near a window, folding and unfolding a handkerchief. I asked whether she knew Daniel Harper. No response. I asked whether she had seen children in the hospital. Her hands stopped. "They aren't children," she said. "What are they?" Questions. "Why have they come to Ashcroft?" "Because you gathered the doors." Miriam said people like Elena, Laura, Daniel, and Samuel had all created what she called remembered thresholds: a porch, a car, a hospital waiting room, a locked stairwell, any place where someone consciously denied them permission. The children could return to that threshold later, not physically, through memory, through dreams, through anyone who heard the story and imagined the door. I told her that sounded impossible. She laughed softly. Doctors always confuse impossible with unfamiliar. Miriam's first encounter happened when she was 9. She and her younger brother were home alone during a snowstorm. 2 children knocked at the front door and asked to come inside. Miriam refused. Her brother whispered that they should let them in. The children heard him through the closed door. They asked again. Miriam covered her brother's mouth. They asked a 3rd time. Her brother nodded. Not at the children, at Miriam. He wanted her to open the door. That was enough. The door unlocked itself. Miriam hid upstairs in a wardrobe. When the house became silent, her brother was gone. The front door was still closed. No footprints marked the snow outside. Her brother was never found. "What happened when you refused him later?" I asked. "He became younger." Daniel had said the same thing. "Why?" "They wear the age you trust." She looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were pale gray. "When that stops working, they become what you protect." "Infants?" "Eventually." "What happens after that?" Miriam's smile disappeared. "Then they stop asking like children." Over the next several days, reports spread through Ashcroft. A patient on the 2nd floor heard a little girl asking to use the bathroom from inside an empty linen closet. An orderly saw a boy standing beyond a locked courtyard gate. A maintenance worker found 2 child-sized handprints on the inside of a 4th-floor window. Staff became nervous. Some refused night shifts. Others laughed too loudly about the rumors. I ordered everyone to document sightings without discussing them among themselves. That request had the opposite effect. Silence made the stories larger. The hospital administration asked whether patients had been exposed to a shared delusional narrative. I told them yes. It was the most responsible explanation. Then I reviewed the reports. 9 witnesses, 4 patients, 5 staff. Only 3 had heard the full story. The rest described the same behaviors independently. The children always appeared near a controlled threshold. They always asked for access. And they were getting younger. The earliest sighting at Ashcroft described children around 10 years old. The most recent described a boy and girl no older than 3. The girl in the linen closet could barely speak. The patient heard her repeat one word: "Open." Daniel stopped sleeping. He refused to look at doors directly. He sat facing the corner and asked staff to announce themselves before entering. I offered medication. He refused. "You'll make me sleep. That is the point. That's when they practice your voice." At 3:04 the next morning, the audio channel outside Daniel's room recorded my voice. I was not in the hospital. The recording was faint but unmistakable. My own voice said, "Mr. Harper, may I come in?" Then again, "Mr. Harper, may I come in?" A 3rd request began. Daniel screamed over it. The hallway camera showed no one outside the door. Ashcroft's oldest wing contained a basement level no longer used for patient care. It housed steam pipes, archived furniture, and the remains of treatment rooms closed decades earlier. Miriam asked me to take her there. I refused. She said Daniel would die if I did not. I asked how. "They need someone who remembers the first door." "The first door at Ashcroft?" She nodded. I arranged for Miriam to be escorted downstairs with 2 nurses and a security officer. She led us through the basement without hesitation. At the far end was a narrow corridor omitted from current floor plans. A plaster wall concealed most of it. Behind stacked cabinets, we found a wooden door. It was too small for the surrounding frame. The knob had been removed. Someone had driven iron nails through the panels in a crude circle. Margaret arrived while facilities cleared the area. She recognized the door. The older orderly had shown it to her when she first started work. He called it the listening room. No official record explained the name. Miriam touched one of the nails. They closed it wrong. "What is behind it?" I asked. "Not behind." She pressed her ear to the wood. "Before." I nearly ended the visit. Then something knocked from the other side. 3 soft taps. One nurse stepped backward. The security officer raised his flashlight. A child's voice spoke through the door. "Dr. Caldwell?" Miriam closed her eyes. The voice sounded like a young boy. "Dr. Caldwell, may we come out?" I did not answer. The boy tried again. "Dr. Caldwell, may we come out?" The security officer whispered, "Who the hell is in there?" Miriam grabbed his wrist. "Don't give them another voice." The third knock came. No question followed. Instead, we heard Daniel screaming through the wood. "Doctor, please, they put me in here." I knew Daniel was locked in his room 3 floors above us. I also knew the voice was his, every tremor, every breath, every frightened break between words. The nurse beside me moved toward the door. I stopped her. The voice cried out again, "Please open it." Then it changed. My wife's voice spoke from the other side. Evelyn had been dead 6 years. "Richard," she said, "you left me alone." I could not breathe. No patient knew her voice. No member of staff had ever heard it. The thing behind the door spoke exactly as she had during the final months of her illness. Softly, patiently, as if apologizing for the inconvenience of dying. "Richard, please let me out." Miriam slapped me. The sound broke whatever had taken hold. I stepped away from the door. Evelyn began to cry. Then the children laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly, like children pleased that a game had almost worked. We left the basement. Facilities sealed the corridor with concrete that afternoon. At 6:20 p.m., Daniel Harper disappeared from his locked room. The door never opened. The window was secured. The camera showed him sitting on the floor. At 6:19, the lights flickered. At 6:20, the room was empty. On the wall behind him, someone had written, "He answered for you." Daniel's disappearance was treated as an escape. The state police searched the grounds. Dogs followed his scent from the room to the west stairwell, then down to the sealed basement corridor. The trail ended at fresh concrete. Hospital administrators demanded explanations I could not provide. I was placed on temporary leave. Before leaving Ashcroft, Margaret gave me Daniel's notebook. A new page had been added. The handwriting was his. I know because the words slanted downward whenever he wrote quickly. The entry was dated the day before his disappearance. Dr. Caldwell thinks they want doors. They don't. They want witnesses. A door only matters because someone remembers closing it. Every story makes another door. Every listener imagines the children standing outside. That is how they travel, not through houses. Through the moment before someone decides. The last paragraph was written more heavily, the pen nearly tearing through the paper. Caldwell has heard too many accounts. They are not asking to enter Ashcroft. They are asking to enter him. Beneath that, in block capitals, was one final sentence. When he tells the story, do not answer them. I took the notebook home. For several weeks, nothing happened. I slept poorly, but grief had taught me not to treat insomnia as prophecy. I heard noises at night. Houses make noises. I saw movement beyond windows. Trees move. Once I woke to 3 knocks from the front door. I checked the security camera. No one was there. I did not open it. I began organizing the cases. Elena Morales, Laura Ames, Miriam Bell, Daniel Harper, the sightings at Ashcroft. I told myself I was preparing a report. In truth, I was building a narrative. That was the danger. A list of facts is inert. A story invites participation. Every time I arranged the events into order, I imagined the gas station, the porch, the hospital waiting room, the locked stairwell, and at each threshold I saw the children. Not clearly, never clearly, but enough. One night, while reviewing Daniel's recording, I heard a sound beneath his voice. 3 taps. I isolated the audio. The tapping had not come from the interview room. It was embedded beneath the tape hiss itself. Too regular to be random. I amplified it. After the 3rd tap, a child whispered, "Now you know where to find us." I returned to Ashcroft 3 months later. Officially, I came to collect personal belongings. Unofficially, Margaret had called to tell me Miriam Bell was dying. She had refused food for 6 days. When I entered her room, she looked smaller than before. Her breathing was shallow. She smiled when she saw me. "You took your time. What happened to Daniel? He opened the wrong way. Is he dead?" Miriam looked toward the window. "Not yet." "Where is he?" "Where everyone goes when they let the question finish." I sat beside her. "Can they be stopped?" "No." "Can they be kept out?" "For a while." "How?" "Stop answering." I never said yes. You answered every time you listened. That angered me. You asked me to investigate. I asked you to understand. What is the difference? Investigation wants an ending. She reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. They live in endings, Richard. I asked what she meant. Miriam said the children were not creatures in any biological sense. They were an invitation given shape. They appeared wherever fear and responsibility met. A child asking for help, a stranger at a door, a voice claiming to be someone loved. They depended on the human need to resolve uncertainty, to decide, to know. Every refusal postponed them. Every explanation fed them. Every retelling gave them another chance to ask. "Why black eyes?" I asked. Miriam smiled weakly. "So you know there's no one looking back." She squeezed my hand. "When you see them, don't study them." What should I do? Leave the question unfinished. Miriam died that night. Her last words were not addressed to me. She looked toward the empty corner of the room and whispered, "You already asked twice." I resigned from Ashcroft. The official explanation cited grief, stress, and professional exhaustion. All true. I moved to a smaller house outside town. No porch, no glass beside the front door, no spare bedroom. For nearly a year, I received no reports from Ashcroft. Then, Margaret disappeared. Her car was found in the hospital parking lot. Her keys remained in her locker. Security footage showed her leaving the building at 11:12 p.m. She stopped outside the west entrance. 2 small figures stood beyond the camera's range. Margaret opened the door. The footage ended. The police assumed she walked away voluntarily. I knew better. A week later, I received a package. No return address. Inside was the old cassette tape from Elena Morales. I had left it in Ashcroft's archives. The label had been replaced. Case 2147, R. Caldwell. That was Daniel's patient number, my name. I did not play the tape. I placed it in a kitchen drawer and covered it with towels. That night someone knocked on my front door. 3 soft taps. I sat in the living room and did not move. A boy spoke from outside. "Dr. Caldwell?" His voice was young, perhaps 8 years old. "We need to use your phone." I said nothing. The girl spoke next. "Our mother is hurt." I closed my eyes. Rain began against the windows, though the forecast had been clear. The boy knocked again. "Dr. Caldwell, may we come inside?" I remembered Daniel's rules. Do not explain. Do not negotiate. Do not let them ask 3 times. The girl began to cry. Not theatrically, quietly. The restrained crying of a child trying to be brave. Every instinct I possessed urged me toward the door. I had spent my life helping people in distress. The children knew that. The boy spoke again. "You help sick people." I remained seated. "Please help us." Second request. The handle turned slightly, locked. The girl's crying stopped. A new voice came from the porch, Daniel Harper. "Doctor?" I opened my eyes. "Please don't leave me out here." His voice sounded exhausted, human. "I did what they asked. I found the door. I can come back if you let me." I covered my mouth with both hands. The voice continued, "You owe me." That was not something Daniel would have said. But guilt is rarely reasonable. The porch light flickered. 2 shadows appeared beneath the door. Small feet, bare. Then a third shadow formed between them, an adult. Daniel whispered, "They said you have to answer." The first child knocked again, third knock. But no question came. Silence stretched across the house. I waited. The boy finally said, "You already told everyone." The shadows disappeared. The rain stopped. I remained in the chair until sunrise. When I opened the door, the porch was empty. 2 wet footprints faced the house. Between them were the impressions of a man's bare feet. All 3 sets ended at the threshold. That was 5 years ago. I have not seen the children since. I have heard them. In recordings, in dreams. Once through a disconnected telephone. But I have not seen them. You may wonder why I am telling this story if Daniel was right. If every account creates another door, why add mine? Because silence did not stop them. It only left the rules buried with the people who learned them. So listen carefully. The children may appear anywhere. A front porch, a roadside, a hospital corridor. They may look frightened. They may look sick. They may claim someone you love is in danger. They will remain polite because politeness requires a response. Do not ask what they want. Do not tell them no. Do not offer another solution. Do not speak through the door. Do not look into their eyes. And if they ask a third time, do not finish the question in your own mind. The invitation does not occur when a door opens. It occurs when you imagine yourself opening it. 3 months ago, a hospital in West Virginia contacted me about an unidentified man found wandering near Interstate 68. He carried no wallet. His shoes had no laces. He asked the police whether 2 children had followed them. The hospital sent me a photograph. The man was older than Daniel would be now. His hair was white. His face was gaunt. But I recognized him. I drove there. He was restrained in a private room. When I entered, he smiled. "Doctor," he said, "they let me come back." I asked where he had been. He looked toward the door. "Waiting." "For what?" "For you to tell it correctly." I should have left. Instead, I asked the question that had driven me for years. "What are they?" Daniel began to cry. "You finally asked." The lights went out. In the darkness, 2 children knocked from inside the room. 3 soft taps. A boy's voice came from beneath Daniel's bed. Dr. Caldwell? A girl's voice answered from inside the wall. May we come out? Emergency power activated. Daniel was gone. The room was empty, except for me. On the floor lay a cassette tape. Case 2147, R. Caldwell. I'm recording this now because I know what happens next. The tape was never meant to document Daniel. It was meant to document me. My name is Dr. Richard Caldwell. For 26 years, I served as chief psychiatrist at Ashcroft State Psychiatric Hospital. I believed patterns could tell me the difference between delusion and reality. I was wrong. Patterns only tell you when something has happened before. There are children standing outside the room where I am recording this. I cannot see them. The door has no window, but I can hear them breathing. The boy has knocked once. He asked whether I was alone. I did not answer. The girl knocked a second time. She asked whether she could speak to you. Not me. You. I do not know where you are listening. I do not know whether it is day or night. I do not know whether there is a door near you. But before this recording ends, understand one thing. They do not need to be outside my room anymore. They only need to be outside yours. There. Did you hear that? 3 knocks. Whatever you do not answer him. Thank you for spending another night here in Hushed Hollows. If you enjoyed the story, consider subscribing. There are plenty more waiting for you. And before you leave, think back to every door you've passed today, every knock you've ignored, every strange voice you've convinced yourself you imagined. Maybe they weren't looking for Dr. Caldwell. Maybe they were waiting for someone else to hear his story. Sleep well, and if someone asks to come inside, choose your answer carefully. I'll see you in the next one.